Hello, and welcome to another episode of Words with Dr. Whitaker. I am so excited today to celebrate National Career Technical and Agricultural Education Month, otherwise known as CTAE, and also student success in all areas with none other than the principal of Decatur High School, Dr. Duane Sprull. Welcome, Dr. Sprull.
Thank you so much, Dr. Whitaker. I'm so excited to be here today.
Yes, I'm very excited to have you. This is the first podcast to feature a principal here in our school system. So I'm very excited for today, and also just to talk about the journey of the past year. So the two of us walked in almost together to these current roles, but tell me a little bit about yourself, your career, how long you've been in Decatur, progression, things of that nature.
Okay. So I grew up as a military brat in Fayetteville, North Carolina. My dad was in the Air Force, and I relocated to Atlanta about the same time you did, as we talked about, right around 1999. First teaching job was with DeKalb County Schools, and I progressed to a coordinator of career tech in DeKalb before taking my role as the CTA director for the city schools of Decatur. And I've always been based out of Decatur High School. So that title increased a bit to what we call the CEO of a career academy. That's a Georgia title that we use.
Yes.
And I was in that role up until I took the principalship role at the beginning of last school year.
Well, that is awesome. So excited about your leadership. So excited about the years of service in education in general, but specifically to the city schools of Decatur. You are a gem. And we're excited to unpack some of this and some of your leadership. So as I do at all of the various podcasts, I talk about our strategic plan because that really grounds what we do. So in 2023, around March, the Board of Education launched in our strategic plan called All in Decatur. And the strategic plan encompasses 4 strategic accelerators. Those 4 pillars lead and guide everything that we do here in the city schools of Decatur. The first one is the one we're probably going to talk about the most today, is student success in all areas. And that's because here in the city schools of Decatur, we know we want all of our students to be safe, to be seen, and also to be successful. The second pillar of our strategic plan is how we build and sustain an engaging and inclusive culture. And there are a couple of ways that I know you do that every single day at Decatur High School, because the high school really brings the entire community together as we prepare our students for their next steps post-secondary. Next is something that I know you know a lot of because you have a very large staff at Decatur High School, and that is the strategic accelerator of cultivating and retaining high-quality professionals. You have a very large staff that you work with, that you support, that you lead. So we'll unpack a little bit and talk about even your own leadership journey today, and the ways in which you are being developed to do what you do and do it well. And then finally, as a school system, we need to always be able to speak to organizational effectiveness and excellence. And that's because a very high-performing school system, which we do have, it's so important that this school system be effective and excellent in its infrastructure as well. So all 4 of these strategic accelerators will be a part of our conversation today. But this first one, student success in all areas. Decatur High School is a premier high school, not only, I would say, in the metro region, but in the state and also nationally. Decatur High School is ranked and ranked well. And you are now in your second year as being its leader. And you have stood by that strategic accelerator of student success in all areas. And as we celebrate CTAE, I think about how student success looks different for every student. But CTAE is critical towards that level of success. So let's talk about it a little bit. Your leadership and your experience as a principal is vast, even though it's only been 1 year, because you've been in the district for how many years?
Since 2007. I stopped counting.
2007?
Yes.
Okay. So in CTAE is a pillar of that leadership, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So talk to me just a little bit around how you think we should embed college and career readiness so that we could have success for all of our students.
I think because of the career academy model that we have, most career academies in Georgia are a bus situation in which multiple schools access a career academy and students are bused there. Mm-hmm. Whereas City Schools of Decatur, we know we're a one high school system. Mm-hmm. So what occurs is students just bust through these doors, and now you're in the career academy. And over the years, since 2011, when it was first opened, we've kind of spread out throughout Decatur High School again, because we've grown from 750 kids in 2007 to now over 1,900. So what occurs is that students, it could be our most academically inclined students, mm-hmm. and our students that may be challenged academically, can all find success in our programs. So there's something there in career tech for every student to be able to explore what their interests are, leading to a pathway for work, and teaching just general job skills, getting to work on time, mm-hmm. giving a great effort, mm-hmm. Following through, working mm-hmm. with others. So mm-hmm. all these skills are something that, we talk about on a daily basis that really enhance the academic experience at Decatur High School.
Yes, and all of those things really support student success in all areas. But I'm going to take a dive a little bit specifically into your leadership over the past year.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to read a little bit of stats, a little bit of those accomplishments. Okay. In your first year as principal. You are ranked in U.S. News World and Reports in the top as a top high school. Once again, that's a national ranking. And the increase in the graduation rate to 95.35%, which includes a 4% increase for Black students, 2% increase for multiracial students, 1% for white students, an increase of 7.62% for economically disadvantaged students. So all means all to go across that stage.
Yes, ma'am. All means all.
All means all. I love it. Also, when it comes to the SATs, 22-point mean increase in the average SAT score in 1 year at Decatur High School under your leadership, and ranked among all 182 schools in Georgia at number 2. I love it. I love it. When you think about the ACT, you're pretty much at the top in the state of Georgia, and outpacing the national average for SAT and ACT. But there's more. I really am very, very proud of your work to close the achievement gap. And when I think about the College and Career Readiness Performance Index, or CCRPI, that accountability measure, for you, closing the achievement gap at a percentage of 93.2% in 1 year, and seeing your overall index score go from 81 to 90.4 in 1 year. So when I think about all of the things that you're doing, it's really speaking to who you are as a leader and being able to see all the children at the school. And I know you have talked a lot about, and even just most recently at our board meeting, around how you can see the students in a different way in this role. Those CCRPI scores that I just mentioned really come from the Georgia Milestone Assessment. And you have focused tremendously on moving the data and standards mastery for all students, but specifically as our board has outlined in the strategic plan for your Black students, where you had a 12% increase. And that's exciting, because that type of data movement at the high school, I'll be honest, it's difficult. And I know that. So I want to congratulate you. I want to congratulate your staff. I want to congratulate your students, because not only are you moving the needle academically, but when I think about all of the cultural, the sports, all of the extracurricular, I am about the performing arts.
Absolutely.
I'm there all the time. Regional, state, national accomplishments, all under your leadership. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your leadership. And when I think about all of those statistics, it really speaks to what you have been able to achieve in your first year, and also to achieve getting your own doctorate, Dr. Sprull.
Thank you.
In your first year.
Yes, ma'am.
So there was a lot of statistics. That was a lot of talking. But I really wanted to take the time to share with everyone what has happened in a year under your leadership as principal. And I think it's awesome. So my question is, what is it about Decatur High School that helps students be set up for success?
So I think it's an appreciation in the partnerships that we develop. And when I say partnerships, I mean between the teachers and the administration, between the teachers and parents, and then also including the students in those partnerships. We have a very supportive community that wants the best for their students, but not only for their students, for all students. So when you go to parents and you ask them for support and supporting students that may not have, they're willing to step up and support you as a leader, whether it's my school leadership team, which is comprised of teachers and parents, or our PTSA. I don't dread going to those meetings. I'm excited to go to those meetings because I know I have a team that's not just inside of my building, but just in my community that will wrap their arms around students and provide these opportunities. That is the biggest thing about the Decatur community being 4 square miles, that everybody is focused in, as you told me when you first began, Dr. Whitaker, on this high school and what goes on at this high school. And it's a mini city of its own in this little mini city called the city of Decatur. So just having all these areas of support and with all of our programming, and then also being held to a high standard. You hold me to a high standard. My supervisor, Ms. Karen Newton-Scott, holds me to a high standard. But we also have a way of collaborating and having these long conversations to get to what's best for kids. And that's what it comes down to. I have no doubt when you come to me and say, we need this done, or Ms. Newton-Scott does, that it's about students. And when parents, sometimes you have to redirect the community and say, hey, is this what's best for all students versus what's best for your students? I'm going to get and take care of your student, but what is good for all students at Decatur High School? And it's that feeling and that emotional connection that we have to each other in that city that makes it so wonderful to be a part of that community.
Yeah. I will say you've been in the role for about 1.5 years, and it's been a pleasure to work with you and to watch you grow. But my question is the future. What are some of the goals? I mean, I gave a lot of great stats, a lot of ways things have already moved for children. What are some goals? What do you want to see in the future at Decatur High School?
So definitely for our subgroups, and you gave us all these accolades, but I just don't feel like we're there yet. And that's our Black subgroup, our students with disabilities, as well as our economically disadvantaged subgroup. Those three subgroups have to be a focus. And in the programming that we're doing with UVA and such, we'll get to that, I know.
Of course we will.
The focus is on those groups, but when we do these professional learning, I'm seeing so many other things that I can bring back. You know, we visited as a instructional leadership team 330 classrooms in the first semester, and all those are not about checking a box. They're about giving real feedback that's actionable to teachers, and it also gives us feedback as administrators and teachers to where we're moving at in the future. So it's just focusing on those groups, but not losing sight that we want everybody to move, because it does not pay off if you're moving some groups and some groups are in decline. So just and the support from the board. Just think about last year when the board presented the data around these subgroups and at our middle school, and being in that room and hearing that from the board, not from the folks that work here, but also for the folks that live here. And that, you know, it's impressive, but it also continues to focus us. My own children's experience in the city schools of Decatur, I told you this the other day, it's always a motivator, because the kids have had a wonderful experience as a part of the city schools of Decatur, and I expect that and want that from every student that comes through our doors.
You said impressive, and it is impressive. It is impressive that not only is the board a consumer of the data that we provide as staff, but then they can also communicate their desire and their understanding of that data and its change. That's awesome. But you started in the realm of career, technical, and agricultural education here in the city schools of Decatur, and you have seen it progress. So talk to me a little bit about what it looked like when you first arrived to what it looks like now.
Okay, so back in 2007, in the Stone Age, when I arrived at this,
yes, I think we were still working by candlelight. That's
it. It was with 750 students. We had a few programs: the traditional family consumer science, what they call FACS, business ed. We did have a engineering/architecture program that has lived and thrived throughout the years. At that time, we had construction in a construction lab, and we just, the superintendent at the time, Dr. Edwards, charged me with going after this $3.5 million grant, and it was the Georgia Career Academy grant. That first year, we fell on our face. We applied. We got a lot of good feedback. We had a lot of consultants coming at us saying, "Hey, how can we do this better?" And and I just went to Dr. Edwards and said, "Hey, I'm gonna need some help with this. I have the ideas in my head, but my skill set is not writing grants." So we actually employed a teacher, Mr. Brent Eichhoff, former Decatur High School teacher, former Decatur High School student, and he was our writer, and I co-authored it with him. And we just went out and sought these community partnerships, because that was a big hole that we had in our initial application. So we applied the second time in 2009. And I remember before going into the actual presentation stage of this grant, and Dr. Edwards said, "We're going to get this thing, grab hands, and let's put a good word in, and then we're going to go in here and get this money." And so we have the money in 2009. We planned for the next 2 years. In 2011, we opened the Career Academy with a grand celebration out in the little courtyard that are now used by the little ones to have their recess time.
Yes.
And during that. We had the lieutenant governor at the time came and spoke. Not only did he come and speak at our opening day, but 2 years later, our first group of students that earned associate's degree while in high school from DeVry University, he came to DeVry and spoke at that graduation as well as ours. So it's been a kind of a whirlwind as they tore down houses and built houses, and students, we got more and more students up to that 1,900 now. We just added programming. So currently what we have now in the Career Academy, we have furniture design, and that's it. People see the spaceship from out front of the high school. That is located, it's our old library that we had redeveloped, and I think it was $106,000 grant that we got from the DOE to help put the equipment in that lab. That's a full program all day. We have kids that we have to turn away, unfortunately, because we go over what we can safely serve. We have AVTF, which is the audio, video, film, and technology, architecture, graphic design, early childhood education with our babies. So we have about 50 to 60 newborns through 3-year-olds in that facility, which is on our campus, and kids can access that as part of their classwork. But we also know Dr. Whitaker is working very hard with the board to build a new facility right across the street that our students still will be able to access, and we know we're excited about that coming. And so we also have culinary, which is our most sought after program. We currently have 2 teachers that teach 10 sections, so 5 classes each. We could have another 2 teachers and another probably 10 sections, and it would still be there will still be more demand. So culinary is our most popular program, and just to be clear, kids don't always eat in culinary. Many times they're cooking, and then the teachers are giving the feedback outside of their program. We have a computer science program that has grown to 2 teachers. And what's wonderful about our computer science program, we were just named as an AP cybersecurity pilot program that we met about this morning, as a matter of fact, to try to figure out how to make this happen. Because on one side, computer science is so popular that we have 10 sections already, but we still need another section of this program. So we're working through that as a admin team, and with our Mr. Simrad and Miss Pierce as our teachers. And we're excited about that training they'll undergo this summer, and offering that as another pathway for our students that are into technology. And I don't want to miss the TAP program. Teachers as a profession, we just call it TAP, T-A-P. In this program, I'm going to start with the 3rd year. In the 3rd year, students actually go out to our elementary and middle school and work in the classroom daily. So they do an internship, and that's their class for the whole school year. And then the first 2 years of that program are on our campus. And it's a growing program, and we're trying to figure out how to best sustain that program, because the one advantage is that any high quality teacher can teach it, because we all as teachers know that are really good at it can teach students. So we're trying to figure out who to line up to make sure we have the right people, right, as they say, the right people on the bus. But I'm really excited about the TAP program, as the hire to retire has kind of been the theme, and that's what we want to do. We want students to go over there, even if it's not coming back to care, although we want them all to come back, it's putting them out there and keeping our profession going, the greatest profession in the world.
Exactly.
Really. So that's kind of the history of where we're at with the Career Academy. It's been a passion of mine, and I think less this year than last year that you and Ms. Newton Scott had to remind me that I'm no longer the Career Academy director.
Wow.
But yeah, so I try to stay in my lane, and Ms. Smiley's doing a fabulous job with the Career Academy.
Yes, she is. She is doing a phenomenal job, and not only the Career Academy, but thinking about CTAE as a whole for our whole school system. So looking at it at the middle school level, and even what does it look like in the future at the elementary level. So very excited. I know one of our board members at the board meeting, when we were celebrating and highlighting the work of CTAE, said, now I've asked, and I want to ask formally, how can we potentially offer classes to the adults in the community around some of the different opportunities and pathways that we have? So we are listening. We do hear you, but we need to think that through in a couple of ways. But I'm excited about that future possibility. And you also talked about another future possibility, which is the new Early Learning Center on West Trinity, where right now in our Career Academy is the Fraser Center. And we have high school students who are learning how to work with some of our youngest learners from birth to 3. And if we are able to build the new Early Learning Center, those students, those little ones, 0 to 3, will move over to that new Early Learning Center. And there is always a question in the community around, well, what will you do with that space? So we are going to engage into some envisioning as a community around that space as well. We've highlighted so many different things about Decatur High School today, whether it's from a performing arts perspective, an academics perspective, an athletic perspective. And there is some space that we will need to envision what that future will look like. So excited about those possibilities as well. We know that it's something that's right in front of us as we launch and continue to work through this strategic plan. But when I think about Decatur High School, just in general, there is clearly so much to celebrate, but we know there's always room for growth. And so you've been a part of the University of Virginia Partners for Leadership in Education, which is a best-in-class executive education through the Darden School of Business and the Curry School of Education at UVA. And this partnership is best in class, and you're receiving a lot of great information. You're probably processing how you as a leader can create the conditions that will bring about the most transformational outcomes for students. Because as we've said, there's a lot to celebrate about Decatur High School. But at the same time, there are ways in which Decatur High School can grow. So I know you've heard a lot in probably the past year from UVA, and you presented some to the board, but talk to me about that leadership opportunity. Talk to me about the journey over the past year, and how is all of this helping to build your capacity as a leader, and how do you see it playing out specifically at the high school?
So UVA has been a unique experience, especially for a second year principal, in that when you hear it, you read about it, until you get there, you don't really understand the impact of being with these other professionals, because you hear business. And so when you hear business, you're like, you can't run a school like you run a business. We know that. Mm-hmm. But this blend of educators and the best business educators in the world kind of open your eyes to the possibilities. And it just kind of rings back to, if this was my child, if this was your child, I center everything around that, because I want that experience to be what I want for my own student, my own children. So going to UVA and having that commitment from our district level, from our board, from the superintendent, that this is the course we're going, and we're going to stay the course, has had a tremendous impact for me to know that this is not a kind of fly by night. We're not going to continue this next year. So knowing that it's an extended program, getting the information to bring back, having time to plan and come up with a plan. I was so excited after leaving Virginia last summer. I spent my whole 2-week break every day putting a piece of a plan together that I knew once I brought it into the building, mm-hmm. that my team of APs and my instructional leadership team were going to rip it apart. But it was okay, because we have a starting point, and just learning from other educators in Virginia, having the time to work with our team, knowing that this journey is not just a Decatur High School journey, it's a City Schools of Decatur journey, mm-hmm. makes it all worth its while. So what we pulled back from the summer leading into the school year was, we have our big rocks where we're focused on student engagement and teacher feedback. And we was able to combine those and do all those observations and give that feedback during the first semester. But it also made me reflect differently last week, really. I went back and I looked at the feedback I was given. We give 2 pieces of feedback. We give individual teacher feedback, and then periodically we will give feedback to the whole staff about what we're seeing. Mm-hmm. And I thought I did a much better job on that feedback at the beginning of the semester, and I wore it down a little bit towards the end. So it's creating that stamina is a part of the process. And UVA really does that, because at the time when you maybe getting just a little wore out, you have that, meeting with them.
Yes, you do.
To kind of re-engage what you're doing and refocus you. So we had another one of those, mm-hmm. I think yesterday. Mm-hmm. So it really, it sets the tone. But also the focus on what are you doing as a leader, not what are you going to make your teachers do, what are you going to make your students do, how are you going to create conditions as to your leadership team and the actions you are taking to impact instruction. And so we've moved from now in the first semester to kind of looking at student engagement to now really turning that corner and looking at how are students learning and if they're learning, and when they're not learning, what's our next move. So that's where we're at now in that process. And it's it really when somebody comes to my office, we have these conversations. I see my instructional coach light up because of the way I talk now versus the way when I was a new principal last year and just trying to figure everything out. So it definitely, and that's what it goes back to, the impact for all students and not just the impact on just the subgroups. So I can reassure the community when we go to these trainings that yes, it's definitely outlining saying we need to impact these subgroups, but these strategies are impacting all teachers and all students. So I want to thank the board for their support and your support in having this vision to put us on a track that will assist us in making those small gains that will make a big difference in the back end.
Yes, you have a solid plan. You have a solid plan. And your reflective nature is one that's to be commended, because when you can pick up the mirror, I call it pick up the mirror and see what it is that I have to do to help make this come to fruition. And when you pick up that mirror and you can say, okay, what did I do? What can I do? And not about you, but me, that makes the difference. So thank you. Thank you for that. And you also made another bold pilot last summer as well, when you said, we're going to take cell phones during the school period and put them away. Talk to me about how's it going? What are you thinking for next year? This was something that through your leadership you wanted to tackle, probably having something to do with that student engagement piece. So talk to me about it. Where are you also thinking about going in the future?
So for the cell phones, and watching Good Morning America today, I think LA Unified just went on, finally, cut the cord this morning as their first day of the cell phone ban. Ours is not as restrictive, as students can have the cell phone between classes and at lunch. And we felt like for our community, that was a happy medium on where we're at. We had parents that were like not so supportive, but we also had parents that we didn't do enough, take them all day. So what we've learned is that the teacher feedback, we sent out a survey in August, and we sent out again last week. And that survey showed that I believe it was 93% of the teachers said that students were more engaged.
Yes.
And 95% of teachers said that it has helped student outcomes. So just knowing that data, and even bigger than that, 108 teachers responded out of our roughly 130 teachers, if you count part-time, full-time, quarter-time. So
teacher engagement.
Correct. Teacher engaged. They have engaged in the survey. So we're not there yet. We still have some work to do around consistency with the admin team, consistency with teachers' implementation, but the kids are definitely getting the message. And what it really does is it has reduced student time out of class. And so they're in class more. And I think that's the biggest impact. When we're talking about scores this year. Our scores from last year were that a focus last year was to make sure kids were in class. A bigger focus once we realized that cell phones could have this impact of kids being in class. But also the social emotional learning side. And we're working on that for next year, we know. But it has a huge impact with cell phones on students interacting during a school day.
Yes.
And we've seen definitely a decrease in that. And we still have our pockets that we have to work on, but we know that if they don't have the phones, these communications that could be negative are not going on during the school day. So we have not gotten any feedback from parents that it's a bad thing. We've had some questions around times where we've had emergency situations, but the phones are in the room with the student in a box that very similar to your pizza delivery box, if you can imagine that, and they have a slot to put it in. And we have a process when a student says that they don't have a phone today, we will follow up with parents. We're going to follow up, and parents are really responsive, saying no. Johnny did have a phone today, and we act accordingly. And our in school suspension person is the person that collects phones, and kids know to drop it off. And if you're on that restriction, what we're not doing is, and as we know, we're not suspending kids for cell phones because we want kids in class. It's not a tool to suspend kids, but we do have a consequence system, and we have expectations for this. So I would say we're at 96% of the students are following all the time, and we'll get there. But it definitely has had an impact on just and when you ask kids informally, they if you survey kids, they're gonna tell you give us our phones back. But when you have conversations, many of them feel relief that they don't have that pressure to know everything. And even we have situations, I've been in the hall after the situation between classes, and kids are not on the phone trying to figure out what happened. They're just trying to take that time in the cafeteria during lunch or in the hallway to really socialize with their classmates versus worry about who posted what during science class, for example.
Well, I would say 96% approval rate of 14 to 17-year-olds. Good on you, sir. Good on you. Well, I want to just say thank you. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for your leadership every day. This podcast and this opportunity to sit down and to hear not only where we are as a high school or as a school system, but to think about the future. I'm very appreciative that you took the time to come today. And I'm very appreciative for your leadership and taking on to be the principal of Decatur High School. So as we close, I just want to say thank you all for tuning in for Words with Dr. Whitaker. And thank you, Dr. Sprull, for being all in for all students every day.